Right, so I was scrolling around YouTube and I came across this channel, and for some reason it kind of stood out to me, so I decided to read the description to see what the channel was about. And according to the description, this channel was solely used for the purpose to store old Minecraft videos that someone had recorded back in the day. So I decided to check these videos, and what I uncovered was way more than I was expecting. Right, let's start with the first video, mines. And apart from the bad audio quality, there's nothing really that suspicious going on, nothing really too out of the ordinary. However, when the player descends through the mine, they keep checking behind themselves as if something's following them. This continues for about 20 seconds before the player's pickaxe breaks, and then the player looks behind themselves as if something's there waiting for them. There's nothing else really in the video, so let's move on to the next episode, Encounter. Straight away we can infer that this is a sequel from the last episode due to this pickaxe being broken and the fact that the player is still in the cave. In the beginning of the episode there is some weird shrieking noise behind the player. As the video goes on, it gradually gets more distorted and eventually just fades away. The player emerges from the mine and another shriek is heard. The player grabs a pickaxe and digs a hole for themselves, seemingly to avoid whatever monster is chasing them. The player, assuming it's safe outside, emerges from their hole. They then go over to the mine and the video ends. This is what I caught in the last second of the video, and this reversed is actually helped me. I don't really know what to make of this, so let's just move on to episode 3. Prepare. The video opens with the player emerging from the mine yet again. However, when the player reaches their door, they see a sign that says, "This is not your world, it is mine. Leave." This spooks the player a little bit, so the player starts blocking off their windows and their door. However, when the player is about to place the last block, they get teleported to some dark dimension. I tried increasing the brightness a little bit to see if I could see anything, but all I really saw was the floor and the walls. I couldn't really make out anything else. The player opens the escape menu and is about to leave, but hesitates for some reason. Eventually the player does click the button and the menu screen is displayed. Now, there are a lot of unanswered questions in this video. Where exactly did the player get teleported to? To that, I don't know, but the only way we're going to figure it out is if we look at the next episode. Return. Immediately after loading in, we can see that the player is in the same location as they were last episode, in their house. Which means the place they got teleported to last episode was actually their house. This because the player's blocks that they used to border up their windows are still there, but now they are covered in signs saying leave. The player looks outside and sees a lot of cobblestone, which the player hadn't previously placed there before. The player pulls out a sign and starts writing a message, saying please stop, trying to converse with the entity that's obviously playing its world. A weird glitching noise is heard, and then there's a change on the sign saying no leave, which leads me to think that the player must have accidentally stumbled upon some entity's world, and the entity wants the player to leave. The player digs down and finds a hollowed out cave, which the player previously didn't put there. The player starts illuminating the hollow cave and then puts a sign down, asking the entity to stop please and that they're begging them. The player then turns around and sees that the sign has been changed to say leave. The player then immediately leaves the game. Now, believe it or not, this episode has actually proved a lot of insight to what this is actually about. The entity, who previously probably owned a world, is forcing this player out of the world because they believe that they have ownership of it. But to really prove my theory, we're going to have to look at the other episodes. Exploration. Now, since this video is over 20 minutes long and I don't want to bore any of you guys, I'm just going to basically clip the key moments and commentate over them. The player spawns in the same little underground hobbit hole as before. Eventually they exit and see that their entire world has been completely flooded with cobblestone and just random blocks. Eventually the player comes across another sign that says the same thing, leave. The player then turns and runs away. The player then claims that they have absolutely no idea what's been haunting them, and then eventually leaves. Now, this video has brought into perspective what exactly this entity is doing. The entity is trying to mess with the player in order so that they leave. But now let's move on to the next episode, Room. A direct sequel from the last video, we can see the player reapproaching their house, navigating themselves through the multiple cobblestone structures and then pausing to take a look at the moon. The player re-enters their mine, seemingly to check out if anything's there. And at the bottom of the mine is a room. The player informs us that they did not build this and it must have been the work of the entity that's been haunting and plaguing their world. The player then makes a sign saying that they shouldn't be there. However, their investigative instincts take over and proceed through one of the iron doors. However, when the player enters this strange corridor, their game starts glitching out and then they turn around and start running out of the corridor. They leave the mine and then the footage abruptly cuts. Now the room in this video was most likely built by the entity, probably to try and scare the player and force them to leave the world. Right then, let's move on to the next video, Warning. This video starts with the player wandering through the world when they arrive at a mountain with a bunch of signs. The signs reading, "So many chances I have given you, so many chances to leave like I have told you to. You should have just quit and never played again. Your curiosity will be your death." And it's here where we learn the player's name, Jacob. So in the most politest way possible, Jacob tells the entity to leave him alone. Then Jacob leaves the world and contemplates deleting it, but then the video just cuts off. In the next video, Room Part 2, Jacob is seen abandoning his base and finds a small cobblestone house in the middle of nowhere. Inside the house there is a tunnel leading to an underground chamber which is full of a bunch of scrambled text. Now, because of the equal sign on one of them, I thought that these could be potential YouTube URLs. However, this was a dead end. The player, probably spooked by this, then decides to leave because you would probably do the same thing if in that situation, if we're being honest. The player stumbles upon more jumbled up text and eventually falls into a puddle of water. And then Jacob is teleported back to the room. There is a sign there beckoning Jacob to go inside. The next episode, Trap, sees Jacob trying to build a trap to hopefully trap this entity. Jacob then walks around his base for a bit, goes outside and sees that something is inside the trap. Now, this might be the first glimpse that we ever get of the entity that's been plaguing Jacob. However, due to the low quality video, this doesn't really reveal anything about the entity. The next episode, Trap Part 2, Jacob re-enters the world and sees that the entity has escaped the trap, then proceeds to block off the entrance to his base. He digs a hole under his base and starts detailing the entity's capabilities. Jacob also thinks that the entity could be a mob, but no mob can actually place blocks, so that it's immediately ruled out. Suddenly, Jacob's door opens and sees the dirt he used to cover the door has completely disappeared. Jacob frantically leaves the game. But now, there's an even bigger problem. My hard drive's out of storage. If you guys want to commentate about anything on this and investigate for yourself, feel free to leave your investigations in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you in part 2, consider subscribing, and yeah, see you in another video.